Arvoyarns.
Yeah, there was a great, been watching like a lot of, mysteries, like on YouTube, like Sherlock Holmes TV show, great, mystery show based on, Nero Wolfe novels and like a whole bunch of other ones. But there's a great, Sherlock Holmes episode where, it's the 1890s and he, is asked by some like Bavarian prince or something to like retrieve a photograph of this actually I think he is the king at this point, the king, and he was like 10 years ago he'd been dating this opera singer and like anyway he wants that to be suppressed. So
I was gonna say he's gonna fap to it.
We'll come back to that. Because what's funny is like Sherlock Holmes at the end of the episode asks for the picture of the woman, and is like, there's like a line where like he's like Sherlock Holmes like never really had like respect for a woman, just because of like never like matched like the intellectual like acuity that he was like used to or whatever. But like this woman, he would like always refer to her as like his picture, so he would just no doubt mentally jerk off to her, forevermore. But in any case, in this episode, in order to like basically figure out where the photograph is hidden,
forevermore.
Or at least until,
you got bored
he's
and
distracted with his morphine and 7% solution of cocaine. Anyway, to make a long story short, he dresses up in all these like disguises in this episode in order to, investigate like where this photograph might be hidden in her house. And, the actor who plays him, Jeremy Brett, is like amazing. So he like totally sells it. Like he's got like, put some like hair here and he's got kind of like talks different, like governor, he's got like the whole kind of like British like street kind of like accent. And he looks dirty, he looks kind of like fucked up, puts like all this like red stuff, get like a little extra, bit in the cheeks. And, once he's there, like no one notices him. Like people's eyes.
Yeah, nobody cares about him anymore.
Yeah, like literally he's there in front of her house, spying on her. And like in full view of her, like literally then she goes off to get married at this church, like with her husband. And Sherlock Holmes follows, just to keep spying on her. So like he goes into the church, like he still is like dressed up. And he's like in the pew, like trying like not to be seen, but they like need like a witness basically to like complete the wedding. So they invite him up. It's like, you there, you come up. And she's like, me? But like of course like they don't notice that he was like literally like 20 minutes earlier like in front of their house. Yeah, they're like not really paying attention. So, you wonder about like to what extent, in a very class like stratified society, it's like people start getting too clean, like that might be seen as like on the one hand you wonder like to what extent people have like took it the wrong way, be like, oh, it's kind of like uppity person like putting on airs, like being like too clean. At the same time, it's like Sherlock Holmes' like ability to like become clean and like put his top hat back on that like basically allows him to like exist in this society, because it's by this time, the late 19th century, like being able to be clean seemed to be a marker of like social status and so forth.
Well, it's funny how he used it and it was useful for him for a minute. It was useful.
Yeah, just like adopt.
Like I had a really funny experience with somebody that I worked with in my company, or a company that I worked for, and they were like really high up in the company. And basically, what happened was, it's the first time I met them. They were really, really high up in the company. Like once, like if they really wanted to, like they could dissolve the department I was in, like let alone me. And I was like, hey, like really nice to meet you. And they like just limp fished my hand. They were turning when they met me, and they didn't even stop to look at me. They just kept their gaze going, just like limp fit and just like, yeah, cool, good to meet you. And they just like couldn't care at all. like, it was so funny because to them, I was the equivalent of that. I was like this dirty, like, who gives a fuck about you, Pete? Like, you don't matter at all, yo. And
yeah, it's like
it's just so funny.
Not even necessarily like an active like, you know, disgust or whatever. So much as just
I was like, oh yeah, like you're
just
not
like you're not even there.
No, like you're not
yeah.
important. Like,
not on the radar.
Yeah. And it's just so funny because, I mean, ultimately, you miss out on value. On the one hand, with your story, if somehow they cared more about people that were poor and disheveled with their lives or something like that, could they have noticed him? Yeah. Now, is that something that they would have done? Probably not. With me, like, would this person have been like, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to, like, interact with them as another human being. Would that have brought any additional value to their life? I mean, who's to say? I mean, I guess, you know, you asked the question in inverse, would it be valuable to, like, see these lower levels of employees, like, in at least engage with them in some type of, I mean, I wouldn't even go so far as to say, like, force you to have a meaningful interaction, but just to have a smoke and mirrors, like, hi, how you doing? type thing. Like, what does that afford a man?
Sure, yeah. It's so true that, I mean, I like, one of the things that I think is so interesting about our time is that clothes and cleanliness still matter a great deal. I mean, it's definitely a way to, like, enter spaces that you just, you know, would not otherwise be able to enter if you, like, are dressed a certain way.
Yeah.
You carry yourself in a certain fashion. At the same time, though, I feel like we do live in a remarkably democratic time as it comes. Maybe not with hygiene, but, like, at least clothing. You know what I mean? Like, people are so, in a very almost delightful way, dressed down. It used to annoy me more, but now I see it
so
as like
in the past.
Yeah, like when you know, it's just amazing when even when you look at like the actual footage they have of like the early 20th century. I mean, like every guy, you know, like in a city, for example,
like every single person.
Yeah, they literally wearing exactly the same things. Like it's wild.
And I think it speaks back to this is the state of the art, so we must do it. Oh, this is the fanciest we could possibly look, so it must be the best thing that we could possibly do.
Yeah, and
so
well, there's almost like
that becomes the thing.
Dilemma too, because like if you're the only person to like wear like some fancy suit, then like you're gonna like really stick out that like sea of like black and like gray.
Well, that's how the powdered
now,
wig,
like
that's how powdered
so
wigs got started with the syphilis.
Wait,
guy.
Say that again?
That's how powdered wigs got started. Some English king had syphilis from like fucking heaps of hookers, and he like just like lost all his hair, and he was getting like holes in his head because you get holes in your head from like really bad syphilis. That fucking sucks. But so then everybody was like, whoa, like he's so important in our society, like I want to copy him. And so then that's why people wore wigs for hundreds of years.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that because I was
it's also the reason why the Spanish people talk the way they do, because there was some king that
had a lisp, maybe.
Lisp. Yeah,
I've heard that. Yeah, it's quite possible. The wig thing, yeah, I'd like to know more about that. I was like, you know, because people really did wear wigs in different ways. You know, sometimes powdered, sometimes not, over, you know, really long span of time. And yeah, I'd like to know more about it. What's interesting about the wig is that it's like, I mean, all these things are like a bar for entry. You know what I mean? It costs a certain amount, like have a hat, have a wig, have a, you know, whatever. At the same time, though, there's something interestingly like democratizing about the wig. Because, I mean, not just like, okay, if you're balding or something, you can cover that up. But especially the obsession with, like, the gray wigs or the powdered wigs that, like, make you look like you're old. Like, so much of the authority of, like, I mean, to this day, I mean, I think, like, in the UK, like, judges
still have to do it,
have the wigs and stuff. So, like, you know, imagine
so
to bring it
fucking
back to
dumb. It
young
looks so dumb.
young Sylvester, at the University of Virginia in his like late 20s, trying to like gain the respect of these like slave owning frat boys. And you're like, but like if he had like a cool wig on,
If he had a sword,
and he had a sword, then
if he had a slave.
you wonder, just because it gives you like a little bit of a look at
Well, here's
authority. I have gray hair. I'm like an old person.
Here's a great parallel
Ignore
that
the smooth face.
ended on in modern day. My brother went to UPenn. He was telling me about some of the frats there, and he said that one of the frats, I think it's the most expensive frat to join for like Chinese people. Like everybody's Chinese in the frat. You have to break a Rolex. You have to break a Rolex.
Anyway, like, any way you want?
I don't know, but you have to buy a Rolex, you have to break it. And I think the minimum a Rolex goes for is $6,000.
Really?
Yeah. So
Do
you're
they
showing
keep,
out.
like, the shattered remains of all the...
Probably. They're like, yeah, nice.
This is, like, the actual question. Rolex is the plural Roleces?
What's a
Is it Rolexes, or is it Roleces?
I don't know. We're not gonna be able to see you anymore, Matt. It cuts at the waist. I don't know. That'll be an
like vertex and vertices.
That'll be a question.
Matrix
for another,
and matrices.
That'll be a question
Rolex.
for another time. We'll
thanks
we'll
for
follow
listening,
up on that. You'll have something to look
audience.
forward to. The plural of Rolex. It's just Rolexes, dude.
Write in. Let us know in the comments.